뭐지? 내가 이거라고?
한정해.
뭐라고? 젠장, 텍스. 이제 어디로 가?
잠깐만요. 저쪽이에요.
I'm a big fan of third-person shooters. I like having the camera pulled back to show my character interacting with the world. I especially like shooters with time manipulation mechanics. There's something about guns and time powers that makes for a strong combo. Ever since bullet time was introduced to gaming in the Max Payne series, there have been games that have incorporated a slow motion mechanic to facilitate precision aiming during hectic run-and-gun fights. Quantum Break is another Remedy title that features an entire arsenal of time powers, including a version of bullet time that localizes in a concentrated zone. Besides slowing down time, other games have explored different methods to show time shenanigans. Tracer from Overwatch has a rewind ability that sets her position back to 5 seconds ago and restores any health lost during that period. McCree's ultimate attack, High Noon, freezes everyone in place and insta-kills any target in his direct line of sight. And I have to bring up my favorite game, Vanquish, and how it incorporated the bullet time mechanics that Max Payne popularized and tied it to a rechargeable energy meter, thereby making it a renewable resource that required you to learn how to manage your abilities in the thick of battle, provided you didn't just cheese the game by tap boosting. Always do that in Vanquish. The games I've brought up come from well-known studios with established teams behind them, but the game I'm thinking about today is a small project from South Korea. TheDawn is a third-person shooter with time gimmicks by Developer Limited. You play as Maya, a psychic with time powers, fighting off an army of rampant machines in order to protect the last vestiges of humanity from becoming guinea pigs for their experiments. Maya originally had a partner named Max, who was helping her protect the humans, but his body was destroyed and he lives on now as a data chip in Maya's head. Huh. Maya and Max. Interesting. This is a free game available on Steam since December 11th. Knowing that going in, I expected it to be short, and I wasn't wrong. There's one big open, and I'm using that term lightly, arena stage, and one hallway level that leads to the only boss fight of the game. If you're looking for a slow burn of an experience, you won't find it here. Maya comes equipped with a double-purpose gun. Hip firing it causes it to shoot like an auto shotgun, with shells going off at various angles, so it's great for close-range combat, but not ideal when you're shooting at long-range targets. Holding down the mouse 2 button turns Maya's gun into a precision rifle, and it cycles its rounds way too slowly to be viable at medium or close range. For the most part, your best bet is to get real close to a target and just start blasting. Maya has 4 abilities. The first move is a dash maneuver that lets her get out of trouble in a pinch and provides some iframes. The meter looks long, but it's really easy to use it all up without paying attention, and that can cost you a reset to the last checkpoint. Her second ability is to create a time bubble that slows down everything within its area of effect, including stopping projectiles dead in their tracks. Think of Nero in Devil May Cry 5 when he uses the breakage ability for his ragtime Devil Breaker. Maya's third ability is to rewind her position from a few seconds ago and immediately replenish all of her health. It's more or less Tracer's ability from Overwatch. What's interesting is how Maya's abilities basically make her function like an Overwatch hero, as they're tied to cooldown timers. Even the way the UI is laid out for the game resembles Overwatch. Maya's final ability is her ultimate attack. She shoots an energy blast from a rifle that has a vacuum effect and draws all enemies on the field towards the blast until it detonates. This attack requires Maya to harvest the energy from robots she destroyed until her ultimate meter is filled. It's a great room clear because it brings all of the robots spread throughout the arena into the center of the blast. Never miss an opportunity to use it. Since the game is pretty much 3 screens, I'll explain each one as I experience them. First, the city streets. This is a really good environment. I've seen early access games that have detailed Japanese towns as environments. While those kinds of areas feel like they're an asset sold on the Unity store, you can tell that there was thought put into the art direction for the city streets in TheDawn. everything's got the same shade of gray, but it's broken up with careful use of muted shades of blues, greens, and reds on the various props in the game, as well as a brown grime on the walls of the buildings. Even the cobblestone floor has subtle variations of muted colors to break up the visual monotony without hijacking the player's focus away from Maya. This is a good arena for this kind of game because all of the characters pop out of the environment, which you'll need as this is the third-person equivalent to a crowd fighter. The general game flow is to follow the objective marker on the map, clear out any enemies until the alert ticker on the top screen is gone, and then go to the next objective. If that sounds way too simplistic, it is, but that's not the focus of the game. When I saw the teaser trailers for TheDawn, it was reminding me a lot of Vanquish, with a protagonist that uses their guns and enhanced reflexes to slow down time and cut through an army of robots, all while dodging gunfire. And just like Vanquish, TheDawn is very practical when it comes to what the player needs to see, hear, and do during gameplay. I appreciate games that are deliberately streamlined like this. The machine forces will constantly overwhelm Maya with sheer numbers, and she has to make good use of her time powers if she wants to make it out of this town in one piece. When the fighting starts, the game closes off the contested space to control the focus of the combat. Think of it like playing a character action game where the arena gets blocked off until you defeat all of the enemies. It's a good design decision, as it keeps the pressure on the player and prevents them from cheesing gunfights by running around corners and kiting away enemies. But I do wish this level would get repurposed for a survival mode that lets you use the full city level to do that kind of guerrilla warfare in an urban setting. There are two enemy types with two variations apiece. The bipedal models will either come with or without shields. Their guns will fire off tracer rounds at Maya that leave a trail behind to show you where the shot is coming from. Something I like about this game is that if an enemy has their gun trained on Maya, the game will freeze for a split second to give the player a chance to dash out of the shot and avoid injury. It doesn't feel janky, and it's always clear that the game has momentarily stopped because Maya is in danger. The shield versions are kind of annoying. They're either walking down a set path without paying attention to Maya, which makes them easy cannon fodder, or they've settled into their destination and aggroed onto Maya, and turn into Dark Souls 2 bosses with their perfect tracking, so you can't dash around to their exposed areas. Also, their shield bash attacks can two-shot you if you're not careful. It's clear that you're meant to use a time bubble on these types, so you have ample time to flank them, which is great when they're bunched up in a tight cluster, but I never like using that ability up just to kill a stray shield unit. The second enemy type are aerial drones. These enemies will either fire off single shots like the ground troops, or let off a barrage of explosives that can deal some real damage. The hitbox for these guys are really precise, so you'll either have to take some time to line up a shot in sniper mode, or just get as close as you can underneath them and spam shotgun rounds. If I have any criticism for the enemies, it's that I think they should have an animation for spawning in to put the player on notice, like the electric bubble effects that machine enemies had in Vanquish. On my blind run, I was having some difficulty in one section of this level, where you have to hack this vending machine and hold off the position until the timer runs out on the hack. The thing is, the hack will get interrupted at intervals, and you'll have to start it again while avoiding damage, or else you'll have to restart the prompt to resume hacking. It took me a while to get the flow for how to approach this fight, as I needed to build up enough energy to do an ultimate near the machine, hack it, and then build up my meter again. There's a distinct sound that plays when the hack stops, and I didn't hear it at the time because I was streaming the game with my friends and couldn't pick up the noise until I reset a couple times. Once the hack is finished, you go into the room that the vending machine was hiding and hack that terminal to find the location of the AI that's controlling the machines. When Maya leaves the hidden room, she is greeted by a welcoming party. It's cool how the game puts you back in control at this moment, because by now you should have a grasp on her powers and know when to use them on reflex. The final objective is to escape the city with the machines bearing down on Maya. It's really cool how the game pushes the player towards escaping by flooding the arena with enemies, and then it adds even more tension to the escape sequence by forcing the player to fight off drones from intermediate range, while thinking that there are other enemies hot on Maya's trail. This tension carries over as Maya moves away from the main street into an alley through even more enemies. The level ends with Maya sliding towards the end of the alley and escaping the city. After the city streets, Maya ends up in a long hallway that connects to the AI's hideout. This isn't really a level, as it is a transition area from the maze-like layout of the city streets to the boss's lair. Some more machines spawn in for you to fight, but this is really more like a breather area compared to what came before and what's coming next. The data that Maya and Max fought for led them to the chambers of the AI controlling the machines, known as Blender. I see you, Limited. If my review so far has come off as very glowing of TheDawn, here's where I have to bring up the one big issue I have with the game. This boss has a very high tendency to be busted. Let me just explain some of the boss patterns to show you what I mean. Blender is a big guy and can't be taken down by just plinking at his head. You need to soften him up with your time powers. His first phase has him alternating between pounding the area with his fist or doing a sweeping motion to capture Maya. If he gets you in a grab, you need to use rewind to break free or risk losing a considerable amount of health. Regardless of which attack he uses, the intended strategy is to use Time Bubble on the hands to freeze him in place. I'm not spoiling the game, by the way. Max tells you this during the start of the fight.
젠장 이걸 어떻게 피해?
마야, 시간 적시장을 통해서 블렌더의 선택을 멈춰라.
So I did that, but what I didn't know was that the game expected me to rush in close to the hand and shoot the core on the backside until the meter ran out and dealt damage to Blender. At first, I was using sniper mode to shoot at the hands from range, but this was never enough to fully damage a hand. This may have caused the game to bug out. After partially damaging the hand, it no longer registered the arena as the ground for its attacks, meaning that every subsequent attack occurred above where I was standing, so I couldn't use Time Bubble on them. This happened on my blind run, so I really wasn't sure if the game was playing as intended. This meant that I actually shot Blender in the face enough times to bring him down to the next phase. Because Blender was now in a glitched state, I couldn't deal any sufficient amount of damage to him without giving my right hand carpal tunnel by spamming my mouse clicks. This caused a ton of resets, as Blender has a few attacks that can be one-hit kills, like this magic bullet that chases after Maya. Max's advice is to rewind away from it, but that doesn't guarantee that it stops chasing Maya. The missile barrage is an attack that I thought I understood, but clearly don't. Blender shoots missiles that drop onto the entire arena. I thought that I had to use Time Bubble to stop them, but I kept getting caught in the blast of the missiles outside of the bubble. So I took damage and had to rewind to make sure I wasn't vulnerable to another attack. The other glitch attack that comes from Blender is a laser that comes from his head. You have to dash away from the laser and make good use of the stamina meter to make sure you have enough energy to maintain distance from the laser, because it can chew through Maya's health. Here's how I learned to tell when Blender is glitched, besides the hand issue. After every laser attack, he goes into a stun that should have him leaning forward and placing his hands on the arena. You're supposed to circle around his back and fire off at the core from there. If Blender is glitched, he will go into the stun state, but he won't have his hands on the arena. This is bad because now he'll be doing an idle animation, which makes him look like Anthony Fantano doing the dang boy bit.
Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick-ass boy. Damn. Ba-ba!
It took me a while, but I learned that you can still get a good shot at him so long as you're directly behind Blender, as opposed to being just around the side of him when he's in his proper stun state. I actually put the game down because of this fight, and I wrote it off as a game with a fun first level and a frustrating boss fight. But I kept seeing people tweet about seeing the game's ending, and so they must have beaten this boss, which meant that they may not have experienced what I experienced. So I picked this game up again and threw myself at this boss. If you fight him with the intended method, that is, Time Bubble his hands and shoot them at point blank range, he should behave for the rest of the fight. If you start seeing his hands do wonky stuff like this, then reset to the last checkpoint and try again. I've got my gripes with this game, but it's really good with its checkpointing. Eventually, I beat the boss. It's a really good fight. I can see some Nier Automata inspirations in some of its attack patterns and telegraphing. Unfortunately, the first time I beat it, he glitched out and ended up in his Fantano pose again, instead of collapsing onto the arena like he should. But that's TheDawn. Even after experiencing all those issues with the boss, I still think this is a great game. I love its art style, I love how it looks like I'm playing a VTuber with a gun, and I think the game really hit the nail on the head with the kind of combat encounters it presented. Was this boss fight frustrating?
마야? 괜찮아요?
몸이 부서질 것 같지만 어떻게든 정신력으로 버티고 있어.
Yeah, but if I were to compare what I've seen on Twitter to what I experienced, I might just be an isolated case. Hopefully the devs are aware of these issues, and if not, hopefully this video might inform them that these issues exist. What I want you to take away from this review is that TheDawn is a game made by a small studio, and you can see the effort that was put into this free game. Most asset flips on Steam cost at least 50 cents, and then there's this game out here for free with these fun time powers and hectic run and gun combat. Can I put up with the jank I saw? Oh yeah, you should see what my next video is going to be about. All I can say is, please play TheDawn, and if you end up facing the same issues I faced, then I hope this video can help you manage those issues.